All right, everyone. In the middle of the night, FISA was reauthorized. This is, by the way, not exactly, it wasn't a surprise to me. I predicted the other day that while we should fight back against it being reauthorized, it likely would by the U.S. Senate. They managed to do it just at the nick of time so that it didn't lapse. I think it was technically lapsed for a couple of minutes, but then they narrowly passed its reauthorization. And what FISA does generally is it involves spying on foreign targets. And the idea of that particular attachment to it is that sometimes Americans will be talking to foreign nationals that are being surveilled by the United States, and so you don't need to get a warrant to go through that material. It is warrantless spying. It is unconstitutional. I would point out that it's an attachment to the Five Eyes system, basically, data sharing between governments. The United States is not allowed to directly spy on American citizens without a warrant, but it really wants to spy on American citizens without a warrant. Generally, that entails simply getting a foreign government with data sharing capabilities like the UK or the Norwegians or something to do it for them. And so all that data is swept up anyway. I'd point out to people that even if FISA goes away, that would still be fundamentally happening. It would just make it a little bit harder. You'd still have the rubber-stamped courts and all of these other things. Things get swept up all the time. Effectively, if you ever talk to anyone in a foreign country, and most of us do, I mean, if you're a content creator, you're getting news tips and shit all the time from people from other countries. I do on a daily basis, for example. All of that should be construed as being spied on actively. There's an element of differential enforcement where if you're a dissident or somebody that the government happens not to like, they'll make sure to go through your shit. They'll just target some foreign citizen that they happen to preemptively know that you're talking to, and they'll just sweep up all of your data. But again, under Five Eyes, it almost doesn't matter. Constitutionally speaking, it's interesting. Think about the function of the U.S. Constitution. We extended 10th Amendment rights, for example, to all of the states that were incepted after the first 13 colonies. The Second Amendment broadly supports the right of citizens to bear arms. It's not limited to the arms that were available in the 1790s. The right to freedom of religion, to not have your religion denigrated, extends to religions that were created after the United States was created. Mormons and I think Jehovah's Witnesses. I think that's the early 20th century, if I remember correctly, or late 1800s. A Kankar and stuff like that. New Age movements that come far later. Theosophy. Those groups are protected the same as groups that existed in the late 1700s. You do not need to be a Catholic or a Pentecostal or something like that to have the protection of the U.S. Constitution behind your religion. Somehow, though, the right to privacy and the right to freedom of expression never really caught up. And they're trying to do the same thing to the Second Amendment. We see that with anti-gunnery right now. Those three particular constitutional concerns have fallen behind all of the rest, despite being three of the most important. The right to speak and express yourself freely is highly embattled in the United States. It's in the First Amendment for a reason. The right to keep and bear arms is second only to that for a reason, and yet it's probably the most embattled. And then you have the right to privacy for the Fourth Amendment, to be secure in your persons and possessions against unreasonable searches and seizures. This has been embattled repeatedly. You've got no-knock raids, and you've got warrantless wiretapping and spying and things of that nature, directly violating the basic substance of the Fourth Amendment. I wish that the Supreme Court would weigh in on this. Yes, it's pragmatic to be able to sweep up Americans' user data because you're surveilling a foreign target, and that would be coincidental. And they can't go on a fishing expedition as a result of that, but what they can do is they can go before a duly authorized court and say, look, we're spying on this Saudi Arabian, and they were talking to this person in L.A., and this person in L.A. disclosed to them that they had a bunch of explosives and wanted to blow something up. So, we're going to need an actual warrant now, but it's kind of like a fishing expedition by default now, isn't it? It's also a useless process. FISA and the NSA spying and all of these other things didn't stop the Tsarnaevs from the Boston Marathon bombing. They didn't stop anything. Most of the so-called foiled terroristic plots that would be applicable in these situations where this kind of spying is taking place are entrapment schemes, where they find some slow adult, somebody who's mildly mentally retarded and clearly, has daddy issues or something. They say, hey kid, come into my van, but I don't have candy in here, I have pipe bombs. And then they nail him, of course. Oh, well, we were going to try to bomb the federal building. Yeah, you never had a bomb. Yeah, we convinced you to do it, probably after a lengthy conversation, convincing you to do something you wouldn't normally probably do. They've successfully argued defensive cases against this kind of behavior. These things are all enmeshed together. Again, though, even if FISA goes the way of the dinosaur, and Rand Paul is livid right now, the MAGA Republicans blocked it 3 different times, by the way, in the House, before unfortunately it managed to pass. It has not been amended. The GetAWarrant portion of FISA that would have made it at least constitutionally feasible was parsed out by Chuck Schumer and by these other sellouts, the neocon, neolib uniparty apparatus. Didn't pass overwhelmingly. Well, that's good. Some people stood against it. It's very interesting to think of the Republicans as the party that encapsulates anti-surveillance efforts, by the way. Back in the Bush administration, they're like, well, if you don't want us to spy on everyone and read their library records, basically you support Osama bin Laden. It shows that the Republican Party has matured to an extent. Not all of them, unfortunately. You still have Mitch McConnell and these other bitches in the party. But there's an attempt being made, with the Democrats far less. Most of them didn't say a goddamn word about it. Nor did they encourage their constituents to bombard their fellow their fellow members of Congress to try to get them to vote no on the reauthorization. There wasn't much of an organized mass effort. God damn. The internet's more interconnected than ever, but there's less and less actual genuine activism on behalf of the right to privacy. Tech sites used to actually be concerned about this. You remember back in the day, Facebook and YouTube and all the other big tech sites, Mozilla, Wikipedia, etc., that now support limitless surveillance and censorship, they stood up against SOPA, PIPA, and ACTA and things like that, mainly for their own self-serving monetary purposes. But they did. There was an attempt at activism. They realized, hey, we got like a fucking 100 million users. I bet we could get a lot of calls to Congress now, couldn't we? They seem to have forgotten that, other than Twitter. That's the only mainline site that still behaves in that manner. Elon Musk is constantly calling for activism, to his great credit, by the way. Well, FISA's reauthorized, which means several more years of warrantless spying that is blatantly unconstitutional, although technically on paper pragmatic. But it's unlawful. Quite clearly, you should not be able to spy on U.S. citizens without a warrant. That's kind of the point of the Fourth Amendment now, isn't it? It's called get a fucking warrant. If somebody is such a preeminent threat that you think they are eminently going to conduct a terrorist attack or something, it shouldn't be hard to convince a court to give you the ability to read their emails. Now, should it? No, I don't think that it is. And they hide it behind, well, they talk to foreign nationals. Okay, who hasn't? Virtually any American has had communications with somebody outside of the United States. You're effectively saying that all of their digital data, the metadata, the actual content, literally everything, can be gone through with a fine-tooth comb simply because they might have had it might have been a scam call. Let's say that some number in Iraq, tied to Al-Qaeda, accidentally dials me trying to talk to one of their agents in the U.S. Well, there goes all of my privacy. No more right to privacy. Some agent's going to go through every single email that I ever sent. By the way, enjoy all of the Rumble notifications. It'll take you a while. My email gets a little bit clogged. That's why I typically don't give it out, because, probably I won't see your email anyway. The email has become useless these days. Between spam and notifications and stuff, it's impossible to keep up. Blatantly unconstitutional. Very unfortunate that it got reauthorized. Totally predictable, though. At the end of the day, unfortunately, the Uniparty still has control of the Senate. That's about all. Peace out.